everybody, and welcome to The Void, a show dedicated to filling the void between being an employee and becoming self-employed. Most people refer to starting your own company as taking the leap, as if they're blindly jumping off a cliff and into the unknown. This show is here to help you understand that it doesn't have to be that way. As always, if you like what you're hearing on the show, please do us a favor and help share The Void with somebody else who might also be wanting to start their own company. We saw an opportunity to help others understand that self-employment is well within your reach, and just as our businesses have grown organically and by word of mouth, we want this show to grow the same way. I'm your host, Mitch Smedley, and with me as always is David Hilton.
Mitch, I have a bone to pick with you.
You have a bone to pick with me.
So we do the shows on Tuesdays.
We do the shows on Tuesdays.
Rained all day yesterday.
All day.
Couldn't get out this weekend because it was 80 degrees and blowing like a mad cow.
Oh, you're wanting to be in the woods right now.
I should be in the woods right now.
You should be in the deer woods.
I should be bow hunting right fucking now. And instead, I've sacrificed my time and evening for no money.
Look here. For our audio listeners only, you're not going to be able to see this. But
what do you got?
A buddy of mine sent me a picture. Got his first doe with a bow today.
Nice.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, isn't it?
It's a donkey. Is that real or is it fake?
It's covered in blood.
Let me see it. Let me see the picture. I think it's a meme. It's got to be a meme.
It's got blood on it, and there's blood on the ground. Now, I don't think my buddy shot it, but I think somebody shot it and was mistaking it for a deer.
You know what the real sad part is? Is that's a baby donkey.
That's not even a big donkey
The
yet.
bow is bigger than the donkey. God, who shoots a donkey?
I don't know, but Shrek is going to be pissed when he finds out.
It's kind of like that saying where it's like, I shot a werewolf, but by the time I went up to it, it turned back into my neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I should be hunting.
Yeah.
I'm not. I've been out like 7 times. And I've seen a ton. I've seen one shooter buck.
Yeah.
Couldn't get him in range. Seen a bunch of littles, but like today was the...
We're coming out of the October lull.
First off, the October lull is bullshit.
Nah, it's pretty legit.
Nope.
It's where they're shifting from being very patterned into bachelor groups and breaking up into singles. So
they're breaking up into singles.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's where I should be right now. So thanks everybody.
Well,
you're all welcome.
You're welcome. Venison for everybody when Dave snags
welcome.
one.
Yeah, I only got like 2 things of snack sticks left.
Yeah. All right.
Anyways, sorry for the...
What are the topics of the day?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Well, I do.
Actually, I shouldn't say that. I know what they are, but...
So, we are going to talk about 2 things today, and it'll probably take the whole dang episode to talk about these 2. One of them is a topic inspired by a fellow podcaster called Brad Lee. I'm sure you've heard of his podcast, and if you haven't, you need to check it out. It's called Dropping Bombs. And that one is, it's called, that topic is Don't Overcomplicate Things. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, stupid.
The next topic that we're going to talk about is how to overcome massive financial surprises. So, Dave, actually, no, not Dave, Austin.
What?
What did I do?
You get to pick. He's playing video games on his cell phone right now.
Trying to play pool, Mitch.
Yeah. Which one are we starting out with?
We are starting with the overcomplicating things.
Oh, man.
God,
is that one of them?
Guy, man.
Is that one of them? Sorry, I'm in the middle of 9-ball corner pocket.
Pool. I have one more ball to hit before the 8-ball.
Oh, well, I'm glad to see you're valuing this show more than your pool game on your phone.
I love everybody.
Yeah.
All right, let's try not to be too dramatic.
So, I spent this last weekend in Las Vegas. I was at an event called Profit Rocket, and
douche.
As we all know, Dave has an aversion to going to success and motivational type events. I, however, tend to enjoy them in small quantities. So,
small quantities. You go every month.
No.
Yes.
4 times a year.
Every other month. You're fucking gone.
The topic today is actually marital counseling, and you're witnessing it now.
Between Dave and Mitch, right? Yeah. So,
man, I just got so much work to do. Well, maybe if you weren't out of town every fucking other weekend, you could get some of that shit done.
this event, they had some pretty awesome speakers there, and one of the speakers was Brad Lee. And I've listened to his podcast quite a bit. I'd like to listen to it more, especially as he's growing in popularity and everything else. But he has a really unconventional way of breaking things down to where they're incredibly simple, and he doesn't get lost in the weeds and everything else. And so he was telling a story in his speech, or whatever you want to call it. It wasn't really a speech, but he got to talk for an hour, and during that hour he was telling a story, and I'm going to do my best to kind of recapture that story today. So basically, he had a pretty good sales job, but he was spending money as fast as it was coming in. He wasn't all that smart with his money yet, and he and his buddies wanted to go to Vegas for a week. And so he had $3,800 to his name, and he was like, yeah, let's go to Vegas. So he goes and tells his boss he's going to be off all next week to Vegas, and his boss is like, bullshit. And if you're gone, you're fired. And he's like, well, do what you got to do. And
you do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do.
Yeah, so he heads off to Vegas, right, with his $3,800, and he thought for sure $3,800 would be enough for a week in Vegas.
Yeah, partying.
And he woke up his second morning in Vegas, and he was 100% out of money. Had spent all of it.
Been there.
Yeah. Now,
bitch, I'm broke.
Yeah, probably an awesome night for sure. But he was out of money, and so it's not like he could give up and go back home. He didn't have a job, right? Because he lost that to come there.
I mean, he could go home, but
he could go home, but to no job. And so he got a job at a restaurant there in Vegas. Thought he could make some quick tips and live out the rest of the week. So he gets a job there, and he makes enough money to get him by for the rest of his time there, and he quits. Well, in the meantime, in his job there, he was selling more desserts than that restaurant had ever sold in their existence. And so as like selling so many desserts that the restaurant was running out of styrofoam containers to put them in. And so as he's quitting, the owner of the restaurant's like, that's fine. People come and go. I get it. But how in the hell were you selling so many desserts? We've never sold that many desserts. And Bradley simply told him, he was like, it's just because you people are idiots. You fuckers are waiting until the customers are full before you ask them if they want dessert. I was asking them as soon as they sat down. I brought the dessert tray by. I said, these are the desserts we have tonight, and when they're gone, they're gone. Which one would you like to pick out? And I'll make sure there's one sitting there for you. And they would pick their desserts before they ever ordered their drinks and before they ever ordered their food. And so he was almost ensuring a dessert sale at every table. And
when you're hungry,
yeah.
Do you ever watch that old show Seinfeld?
That old show Seinfeld?
Just from the 90s. I mean,
yeah.
It's 30 years old.
Yeah.
There's one episode where Jerry's like, he does his stand-up bit, and he's like, you don't understand when you're out to eat. You're so hungry. You're just like, more drinks, more food, more dessert, more everything. When you're hungry, you don't care, and then you get the bill at the end, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
How much food did we order? Because when you're starving,
yep,
you're at the mercy. You don't care. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
Appetizer? Yeah, bring 3.
Yep.
I'll have 4 beers, 6 appetizers, 2 entrees, and yeah, I'll have that dessert.
Yeah.
I'm starving to death.
Yeah.
I had a friend do it the opposite way, where he would actually tell them with the desserts. He'd say, hey, we're still cooking your order, but we do have some cheesecake ready. Cheesecake Factory. He's like, can I go ahead and get you dessert? He'd actually serve dessert first.
Off, that banana cream cheesecake at the Cheesecake Factory is the best cheesecake ever. I ate half a cake in one sitting one time. The next day, I shit my brains out,
right.
But it was delicious.
I don't want to knock on Cheesecake Factory.
Delicious.
However,
their food's only okay, but
as
their
a
cheesecake
plumber, you get
delicious.
a view into a lot of restaurants behind the scenes.
Which one you been in?
The Plaza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to go to the one off of Metcalf.
So there's some.
Yeah, you got to go to the one off Metcalf.
You get a behind the scenes view of a lot of things as a plumber, and there's a lot of restaurants you won't eat at anymore after you've done plumbing there.
If I told you about the worst Chinese restaurant I'd ever been in as a heating and cooling guy, to this day it makes my skin crawl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll tell you about it.
It's probably right next to the animal clinic.
Well, you have them like
No, they had their own animals in the back. They were huge. And they were fast.
Yeah.
It was awful.
They were quick.
Oh my God.
So basically what Bradley's getting at is two things. One is don't overcomplicate things, but two is just because it's the way things have always been done doesn't mean it's the way things need to continue being done, right? Every restaurant out there waits till you're full, and then they come by and, can I interest you in any desserts? And they know there's a 99% chance you're going to say no because you're full,
Yeah.
right? So he flipped the script. He uncomplicated things, right? He just said, they're coming here. We know if somebody walks in our door, we know they're going to buy drinks. And we know they're going to buy a meal. But if we want them to buy dessert's always told no because they're already full because it's offered at the end of the meal. So if I want to sell a dessert, let's offer it before all of that other stuff that we know they're going to buy anyway. And then we capture that sale too. And so he uncomplicated things, and he also went unconventional. And it worked really, really well. Now, we're not talking millions and millions of dollars, but it's a small view into what happens when you break out of the mold of doing things the way that things have always been done. And when you peel back the layers of complication, right? So you want to say something.
First off, I have a great restaurant idea that I'm going to tell you after the show because I don't want everyone else to know it.
All right.
But I feel like, so in our industry, what's really bad, and this is going to sound awful, but I don't mean it to, but like the old guys in the industry are the worst. You know what I mean? They're this is how I've done it. This is how the guy did it before me. This is how we're going to continue to do it.
Right.
I have to be satisfied. The real problem is I have to be satisfied before we can move forward with a project.
Yeah.
And guys will, if you have employees that are like that, no, that's how I want to do this. This is this is a little off topic, but not off topic. If they sell a job but it takes two guys to go out there and help them do that job, and that guy is so set in his ways about how we're going to do this job right here that it creates a conflict between the other guy saying, hey, dude, we could save like 3 hours doing it this way. This isn't sales related. This is just getting the job done related. But I feel like that, especially in our industries, is a huge drag down.
Yeah.
It's a drag down in sales. It's a drag down in productivity. It can, even in office management.
Yeah.
No, we have to have 7. This person has to have a hard copy, and this person has to have a hard copy, and this person has to have a hard copy. Next thing you know, you have so much paperwork that you've literally overcomplicated your office where you can't even find anything anymore.
You're bottlenecking yourself with.
Yeah, and you're weighing yourself down. I feel like a lot of the office personnel that I've dealt with are like that way.
Yep.
They have so much of it that they can't see the forest through the trees because there's so much weighing on them.
Yeah. So a lot of the complication that comes from that is when you start making rules around the exception. Right?
Yeah.
You get one customer that tries to take advantage of you, and so now you change your process that has worked perfectly up until that one customer. You change your whole process to try to avoid that one customer in the future.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're now screwing your customer experience for all customers going forward, right? And that's how overcomplication begins, right? We literally just had this happen today. Weird freak thing happened. 2 weeks ago, we put a water heater in for a guy. We get a call, water's coming through their ceiling in their kitchen, their hallway, and their laundry room. And so we go out there and we find out that his water heater is ruptured. His water heater is it's in an attic space above his kitchen and his hallway and his laundry room. And the water heater's in a pan, but the pan's a shitty, cracked plastic pan. And on top of that, the pan doesn't even have a drain.
Oh, so it's just rolling over the
Like,
sides.
why even put a pan under it if it can't go anywhere, right? So, we give him tons of options. That's our whole shtick is we give people options.
3 options.
Straight water heater replacement, water heater with an expansion tank, and then I don't know what the upper option was, probably a water heater with an expansion tank and a pressure regulation valve. There's no drain up there to drain this pan, so it would be like a nightmare to try to drain the pan or to try to like install a pan with a drain or something like that, right? So basically we ended up putting back what was there. The customer picked the cheapest option we offered, which was just a straight water heater replacement.
Could have put a water sensor alarm on the pan.
Could have. But
Booyah.
as he was given all these options, he was picking the cheapest, and he literally said when he was picking the cheapest option, I'm in this house for 8 more months before I get transferred out of this area. I'm just looking for an 8-month solution, right?
Yeah.
So the other water heater lasted 22 years. So he's literally looking to spend as little as possible. So we put in as little as possible, right? Well, come to find out, thermal expansion was indeed a problem. And for the plumbers that listen to this show, you'll know what I'm talking about.
TMP blowing over on them?
Yeah, if you don't install a thermal expansion tank, the TMP starts dripping. That's what happened. And now, 2 weeks later, water's coming through his ceiling again. And keep in mind, we can't do anything with this water that's coming out of the TMP. There's no drains up there. And so...
Man, I'm going to bust your balls so hard on this one.
Well, I mean, keep in mind, we could have offered every option under the sun. However, the 3 options we did offer, he picked the absolute cheapest one, right? Well, now, all of a sudden, this customer's changing his tune, and he's like, you guys screwed me, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, we offered you we offered you an option to replace exactly what was there. We offered you an option, and we even suggested if the temperature pressure relief valve is going to give you problems, the thermal expansion tank will prevent that, and you should probably go with at least this one, right? He denied all that. He went with the cheapest. And so now he calls up and he's upset that water's coming through his ceiling again, and now he's trying to say we did an improper install. And it's like, no, we did exactly what you wanted. And just because now you're seeing what we warned you about, you can't say that we did the improper install. If anything, like we can only do as much work as you pay for. So if anything, you chose the wrong option. And like if we did anything wrong, it was we should have like not even offered you an option without a thermal expansion tank.
Boom.
But even then, if one drop of water comes out of that water heater, it's going onto wood and everything else, right?
Where was that at?
It's not too far from here. Fancy house, $500 to $600,000 house.
What's the code state?
Code states thermal expansion must be controlled when thermal expansion is present.
There's always thermal expansion.
Not necessarily.
Well, you got to bleed through PRV?
No PRV in this instance.
So was it bleeding back?
Don't know. Honestly, I wasn't there. I'm not sure, but I do know that they don't have a PRV.
What brand of heater was it?
State. Nothing wrong with the water heater. So, like when we got there, we
I don't
tested
think
it.
states require expansion tanks. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I might look that up.
Anyway, like we always offer the customer the options, right? And we always give them a warning, and it's in writing that if you pick a base option of a water heater and it does begin to emit water from the temperature pressure relief valve, you're gonna need to level up to that next option that includes the expansion tank. We tell them that up front. But we don't want to we never want to put a customer in a position where they don't have a choice in the repair. So we want to give them the choice, but then we also want to try to lead them to the right choice. But then whenever they choose the base option and then it comes back around, when the situation proves that they should have taken our advice and gone with the middle option, we don't charge them extra. We don't do anything like that. We literally just charge them the difference from the option they picked to the option they should have picked. And we come in and we put in the thermal expansion tank and we move on.
So did you put the tank in or what?
So, yeah, we put the tank in. However, this guy's like, all this water is your fault and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, we could put this tank in and that TMP valve could pop again tomorrow, because keep in mind, it pops for temperature and pressure.
You probably should have a PRV on that house.
The TMP valve could pop tomorrow and flood your house again. You have no provisions for capturing all that water up there. So, like, there is no such thing as a proper install up there.
I'm surprised that they let that go up there.
Yeah, I know. So it's a weird, sticky situation, right? Well, in this case, it's a guy that's choosing the cheapest option available against our better advice, and then he's trying to hold that against us later, right? So if anything, we overcomplicate things sometimes by trying to give a customer options. However, statistics prove, like our own statistics prove, that when we give customers options, they have a better experience with us. Well, we're not going to go rewrite the script for how we sell, and we're not going to go change the options that we provide customers based off of this one bad apple.
No.
So we're like, this happens once in a rare blue moon.
Well, you might tell people, hey, if you don't have a PRV, we're putting a thermal expansion tank on it, no matter what. And that doesn't change. Most people have a PRV around where we live, so it's not like it's
the challenge
catch that one outlier here and there with that.
The challenge with that is it adds to your cost, and water heaters are somewhat competitive, right? So us offering 3 options and offering an option that doesn't require a thermal expansion tank gets the customer to listen to us a little bit more, because we're not forcing them to buy all of this stuff. Now, we're recommending that they buy it, but we're not telling them they have to. Right.
Now you have like a story to tell someone who's like in the same situation.
Could be.
Like, hey, here's a risk factor. Here's what's happened.
I mean,
Look, motherfucker.
Realistically,
you need this thermal expansion tank. God damn it.
Well, realistically, what I'm probably going to do is tomorrow morning is our weekly meeting, and I'm probably going to present to the guys that, we want to keep offering options and everything else. However, if damage could result from somebody picking a base option, in those cases, we want to probably move those options up a notch, right? We want the bare minimum option to still be a damage-free option. Now, in this case, you're still at a lose-lose. Water comes out of that heater, it's flooding that house no matter what.
Yeah.
We could put a pan under it, and it would still flood that house. Like I hate to say it, the only solution is to jack it up 2 feet off the ground, put a pan under it, drain it to some kind of basin, and put a pump in there, and some kind of high water alarm.
A high water alarm would be
something, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like HVAC where you can kill you can't put a switch in that just kills the furnace.
I've done it before.
Well,
when I was in Warrensburg,
you would have to put one in that killed the water feed, but then you still have 50 gallons of water that's if the tank pops, you still have 50 gallons of water that's going to try to drain out of the heater.
If the tank pops, you're toast.
Right.
But if you're in a dripping situation, you can catch it early. You can literally put a 24 volt. So if they have an alarm system, you can tie it to that.
Yeah.
If you have a 24 volt, I'm not shitting you. This old man was crazy, okay? He wanted to know if his tanks were leaking at all. They're in a basement. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's a floor drain. So nobody wanted to know anyway.
Yep.
So put a water heater in a pan for him, literally put a high water alarm, which was 24 volts from a heating and cooling system, ran it to a peanut relay that ran a 240 volt relay that shut the heat off to the water heater if it sensed water. And how he would know is they just wouldn't have hot water.
Right.
This was he was like, that's what I want.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I go to the electrical supply house. I'm like, I need a relay that is 240 that jumps off of 120 that I have to run power to, and then go to the heating and cooling supply house and say, I need a peanut relay that's 24 volt to 120. Yep. I mean, I didn't even know. They may have made a 120, but hell, I didn't know. So this guy's got, literally a contraption in his basement.
Right.
Just in case.
Just in case, right?
Just in case.
And we could look back at this scenario here and Monday morning quarterback it to death, and there's probably listeners
the whole
to
half
this.
Of the point of the show.
Yeah, there's probably listeners to this show going, "Oh, I would never put one in without a thermal expansion tank and a PRV and all that stuff," and that's fine. There's a lot of people that do that, and I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm saying that when we offer customers the option to not get a thermal expansion tank, 95% of them still choose to buy one on their own, but they did it on their terms and because that was their choice rather than because we were forcing them to. And so this is kind of an odd one that slips through the cracks. But, we're not going to rewrite our whole process for how we treat every customer because this one guy was being super difficult. It's just part of the way it is. You don't make the rule around the exception. And if anything, you make the rules around the desired outcome. And you got to understand that there's going to be outliers, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like the old guy that, man, I'll never put a GE water heater in again. I put one in for a customer and that thing leaked. I'll never do it again.
Right.
It could have been who knows?
Who knows?
Like, really? I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah, until it develops a pattern, ignore that, right? So that's kind of a long-winded way to tag on to what Bradley was saying, but that's how it applies to us in home service businesses is keep it simple and offer the solutions when the customer is buying. Don't offer the solutions after the customer has already bought, right? We wouldn't ever install a water heater for somebody and then after we're done, go back and be like, hey, by the way, do you want to buy a water softener too? They're already done. Their mind's on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
If we were going to offer them a water softener, we would have done that at the very beginning. We wouldn't have done it at the end. So as you guys are putting your price books together and as you guys are venturing off into self-employment, keep that in mind, that sales is really, really simple in the aspect of you identify what they need, you identify some extra things that they might want, you package that up into several options, and you present that to the customer up front. And then once they make their selection, you move on and do the work. It's that simple. So topic number 2 for tonight is financial surprises and how to overcome large, unexpected financial surprises. So this actually, and we've had this request from a couple of people that'll message or email us in. By the way, if you have any questions and you want to email us, you can send them email to askmitch@mitchsmedley.com. And if your email is a great question, we'll probably even talk about it on the show. If not, we reply to all of those emails. So feel free to send us an email. But we get this a lot where people will ask more questions about tell us more day-to-day stuff on what's going on in your business right now. For right now, we're a little over 2 years in. We're growing. Right now we have 4 plumbers, including myself. We're getting ready to add a 5th plumber. So, we're starting to stabilize a little bit on all of our growth and everything else. And so this is kind of inspired from that, from people saying, we want to know what's going on in your day-to-day operations as a company. What's going on in our day-to-day operations as a company these last couple of months is we got some very, very unexpected news in these last couple of months regarding our taxes.
It almost wanted to throw up there.
Yeah.
It's like taxes.
Yeah, right. So,
fuckers.
and this news has actually caused the end of my relationship with my accountant. And this is an accountant that I used to rant and rave about. However, something happened, and I don't know what happened with him, but he started slipping and started dropping the ball, and the communication dropped down, and the advice we were getting went to a very poor level. And I don't want to say it cost me money because this money I would probably have to pay anyway. However, because of his advice, it put me in a very bad position. So in the last 2 months, I have been blessed with over $50,000 in greatly unexpected financial surprises.
I've been waiting to bust your balls this whole episode, and you keep kind of snaking out of it.
Yeah.
I'm ready this time.
So this has happened over 2 occurrences. One was a $40,000 tax bill that we were not expecting.
Ooh, what happened to 37? Got you for an extra $3,000, huh?
Yeah. Well, so it started at 47,000.
I thought you said it was going to be down to 37.
It started at 47,000. After a 1-hour conversation with my accountant, it's now 37,000. So we'll get into that in a minute. So we got a $37,000 tax bill. And then I got wind that, so as a business owner, you have two types of insurances that you carry on the business. You've got your general liability insurance, and then you've got your work comp insurance if you have employees. And how those insurance policies work is you basically guess at how much work you're going to do, your total revenue, your payroll, your number of employees, and all of that stuff. And then at the end of the year, they will audit you and they will verify how much revenue did you do, how many employees did you have, what was your total payroll. And then they will adjust their premium accordingly. And so if you guessed well, you make it through that audit pretty well. If you guessed poorly, you suffer and you have to pay or whatever on the end. So we went through a work comp audit, and we skated through that with they actually gave us like $300 back.
If you're honest on your work comp and you tell the guy, yeah, I have 2 employees, and you have 2 employees and not 4,
right?
That number's going to be legit.
It's going to be fairly close.
Yeah, it's not. You're not going to get a $10,000. Oh man, work comp screw. No.
Right.
If you're honest with them and say, hey, my wife is a secretary, I work, I have 2 employees.
Right.
That the number is going to be the number.
Yeah. And so as you hire employees, you're adding them to your work comp policy. And so that helps trigger some of the adjustments that'll make that audit fairly manageable. And so we made it through that audit, and that one was negligible, right? In the grand scheme of things, over an entire year, the premium was $400 off. That's not that bad.
If you're honest, you're good on that.
Right. Now, our general liability insurance, there are no triggers in place necessarily to update your general liability insurance. And so your general liability insurance is based off your revenue and your payroll. Those are the 2 big drivers of your general liability insurance. And so at the beginning of last year, we gave our insurance agent a forecast of what we thought we were going to do for revenue, and we forecasted too low. And there was no real triggers to update that throughout the year. We were focused on a bunch of other things. Well, now we've made it through our audit. And I want to say at the beginning of the year, it's the beginning of our fiscal year, the beginning of our policy renewal, which is August. So we've made it through that audit, and it comes up that we are $11,000 short on our premium. Basically, this is the penalty that you pay for being successful. It's because our revenue was much higher than we guessed it would be, and our payroll was much higher than we guessed it would be. And so now we get to pay the appropriate level of premium that really we should have been paying throughout $11,000, that's almost $1,000 a month. So basically, we were underpaying our monthly premiums by about $1,000 a month. And so that's all been corrected now going forward for next year.
I mean, how you would mitigate that, you could always, and I don't know if you would have an office manager. I would think that you'd have an office manager do this, or even a secretary, if they're actually looking through the gross income that you're bringing in. At the beginning of the year, hey, I've told them that we're going to do, for round numbers, I told them we're going to do $1 million.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first quarter, we're at 250.
Yeah.
We're on track.
You're on track.
Okay.
Right.
And that's something you only have to check 4 times a year. Okay. Halfway through, we're at 7. Maybe I should call them and ask.
Yeah.
Next quarter, oh shit. You know what? The next quarter we only did, 150. Okay.
Right.
We're back on track because we're under.
Right. And so in full disclosure, I don't know if that's something that you can, like you said, mitigate throughout the year. I don't know if that's something that you can adjust, and they can adjust your premium mid-policy.
No, I don't think they can adjust your premium, but if you know you're going to be over, then you can set aside money for that.
They may be able to tell you how much short you're going to be.
Well, you just know, hey, okay, so last year I did $1 million, or I told them $1 million, and we did 1.5.
Right.
Okay, and I was over, and I had to pay X amount of dollars. Well, the next year I told them 2, and we did 2.5. I was 500,000 over. Well, the number is going to be the same.
Could be, yeah.
So that last quarter, maybe don't even check it till the end of the third quarter, and be like, okay, if this quarter is exactly what we thought it was going to be, I will know that I'm going to be plus or minus, 100,000 or 500,000 or 10,000, or I'm going to be right on the number. You would at least be. I'm not saying you wouldn't have to write a check. I'm saying you would be more prepared to write that check.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
I said instead of buying the new shelving in the shop, I set that money aside because I knew I was going to, as we talk about all the time on the show, is being prepared.
Right.
And then when we have a problem, go back and reevaluate.
Yep.
So now next year, you're going to be able to say, after the first quarter, you're going to be able to literally take 3 seconds and say, okay, where are we at the first quarter?
Right.
These numbers, you're using QuickBooks.
Yep.
All you have to do is click. Oh, okay, there's the number right there.
It'll give you annual projections.
And
I mean,
if $11,000 doesn't sound like a lot of money, but to a guy that's just starting out, that could be make or break.
Well, so 11,000 does not seem like a lot of money. However, getting that news just a week or two after a $57,000 surprise, or 47.
37.
47.
God, he keeps changing the number, Austin.
So we'll get into the tax thing next.
No, and I'm just
so getting that news just after a $47,000 surprise, that gets pretty surprising, right? We got both phones going off here.
Hey, after I get my ass chewed last week, I remember today.
Yeah. That's where it comes in, right? And so now, in full disclosure, we preach on this show about being prepared for these kind of surprises over and over and over. I also we also stress putting faith and trust in the people to do things that you don't know how to do or you aren't smart enough to do, right? Like, I'm a plumber, I'm not an accountant. And so I went through this entire last year with my accountant trusting him,
yeah.
and him telling me, we're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Now, as you guys are listening to this show, this show's being recorded in October. I got this news on September 1st.
I have been making fun of Mitch the whole time.
Yeah, he has. So we
broke, bitch.
One of the things that happened was my accountant filed an extension. I did not want him to file an extension. I don't like filing extensions. I want to get the tax thing.
You want to get it done and get it moved on to the next year.
Yeah, I want to get it out of the way early in the year so that now I can proceed with the next year. Because here's the problem. If your accountant says, oh, we always file an extension, fire them immediately. And that's no bullshit. And here's why.
Unless you're a $10 million corporation.
No, seriously.
Sometimes it just takes that long to get all your shit out.
Here's why that's a massive problem. We went through this entire year with wrong advice. I went through an extra 6 months of this year operating incorrectly, and I did not even know it until September 1st. At September 1st, I'm surprised with this information that we weren't actually okay on taxes. And so not only does that create a temporary, so
it's a 2-year problem instead of 1-year problem.
Right.
Is what's happened.
So now it puts off my preparation for next year because now I have to focus on the tax deficit for this year, right? So
sounds like you need a GM.
Well, we've solved this in a couple of different ways. So
I'll work for you. How much cash you got?
If your accountant is saying we always file an extension, you need to find a different accountant. And the reason why is because you do your taxes early in the year, you learn from how you handled with taxes, how you fared with taxes. So now you work the entire year, make as much money as you can, and then about September time, you're actually planning for next year, and you're planning tax strategy for the next year.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of hard to plan tax strategy when you're just now learning how you fared with taxes from 9 months ago.
Hey man, I work with someone very closely that does that every year, and literally I'm like, he doesn't pay anything, nothing. And then when the extension comes due, oh, I got to write this check. I'm like, I'm just like, stop.
It's different.
Pay into.
I'll say this. It's different if they've done your taxes and they're filing and you owe money and they're filing the extension just to delay that.
No, that's not it. That's not why.
But if you haven't even done your taxes and you're just kicking that can 6 months down the road, that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
So
look, I never did that much revenue because everyone knows I was a one-man show. But what I would always do is, so when January 1 hit, so heating, cooling guy. So all the initial emergencies are done. Our slow time is usually January. Okay.
Right.
When January 1 hit, I did all of our taxes.
Yep.
So I got everything. I mean, I went through all my books. I went through all my receipts. I went through everything 3 times, GL coded everything that I needed to do. And I always had them to the accountant by January 30th.
Right.
Every time.
Right.
And I did enough of my own stuff that literally all they had to do was, plug
Process
everything
the
into
taxes.
the right stuff and then process the taxes. Now, listen, it's a smaller deal.
Well,
but I
so
always
we were
made
in
that a point.
We
so
were in that same boat.
But by the time the end of February rolled around, I mean, I'm getting a check or writing I know how big a check I got. Or I never got a check.
Yeah.
I knew how much I had to, and I had that money set aside. Like
Yep.
we've always talked, like we talked about, hey, 30%. And I wrote that check, and literally by March 1st, I was on to the next year. The year before was past me. I
Right.
had paid my taxes. It was over.
Right. So our books are closed between the 10th and the 12th of each month, and we don't have a lot of pressure to close our books early. We're not a big giant company. They're like really big, impressive companies. They'll have their books closed within 3 or 4 days of the next month.
Who cares?
For
You know,
us,
it's not a big deal.
Right. For us, it doesn't matter that much. We could speed it up, but it's just not a priority for us at this moment. It will be in the future as we grow, but for right now, it doesn't make a big difference. So we had 2021 closed in the books by January 15th.
Yeah.
So the accountant had all the information in the world to do our taxes January 15th.
Yeah, that's on
Still
them.
files
then.
the extension.
That's on them then.
And so here was my big problem.
Dude,
and
I'd
this,
have been pissed.
And this is what severed the relationship. It's actually twofold. One was we went through the entire year saying, you guys are going to be good. You're going to be good. Don't worry about it. You're going to be good. And because here I've got this pot of money that I've set aside in case I need it for taxes. And when he says you're going to be good, you're going to be good. Well, now I start taking that money and reinvesting it in other parts of the business. I'm not spending it on myself. I'm not wasting it.
Yeah.
I'm buying trucks. I'm buying tools. I'm buying shelving. I'm buying things to help the business grow.
Yeah.
Right? So now,
Austin, a new camera. Maybe. No? No, doesn't sound like it.
no.
Maybe next week we'll try again.
Maybe
Yeah,
next week.
yeah.
I'll try. I'm plugging at him.
So I'm reinvesting that money in the company, and once
Thanks,
it's
Dave.
reinvested in the company, it's there, right? So now I get blessed with this at the moment $47,000 prize. And so one of the things that we did last year was we bought 2 trucks with cash because we didn't have any business credit yet. So I spent well over $70,000 in cash on 2 Ford Transits.
Which is a dollar for dollar tax deduction.
It can be if you depreciate it all in the first year,
Which
right?
everyone should do.
If you're paying cash for them, yes, you
That's
should.
what I would do.
So anyway,
Not that I'm the smartest.
I'm staring at this $47,000 bill and I say, hey, how much depreciation did we take on those 2 trucks that I bought with cash? And he says, I set them up on a 5-year schedule. And I said, why do you do that? Because they're already sold. Like I sold them January 3rd of this year. And he says, well, it affects how much you pay in capital gains tax because we sold them for more than we bought them for. The automotive market went up. I bought them for about $35,000 or $36,000 a piece.
Capital gains is still less than income tax.
I know. So I bought them for $35,000 or $36,000 a piece.
Yeah.
I sold them for about $42,000. So I made money on them. I have to pay tax on that money that I made. And so he says it affects your capital gains tax. And I said, okay, let's run a hypothetical here for a second. Let's take 100% depreciation on them and tell me what my tax liability goes to this year. It drops $10,000 off my tax liability this year. And I said, okay, what does that do to my tax liability next year, assuming the difference in capital gains tax and all of that stuff? And he says, well, it looks like it's going to increase your tax liability next year by $10,000. And I'm like, okay, so this is perfectly legal. We can take full depreciation this year, and we're literally kicking a $10,000 can a year down the road. Why wouldn't I do that? Well, I don't know. Okay.
You're fired.
Well, you just surprised me with a $47,000 tax bill that you said we're good on all year long, and now you're giving me pushback when I'm trying to reduce it by $10,000.
Yeah.
Like, what's so hard to see here, right?
What are you doing, bro?
So we'd go ahead and make those adjustments. He files them. I go back and pick up the paperwork. And now we're staring at $37,000 in state and federal income taxes that I was not expecting. And $11,000 just a few weeks later, we get this $11,000 general liability policy audit premium. And so,
did I already say you need a general manager?
yeah. Well,
did I say that?
In the time of all this transpiring, we've hired a couple of key people. They're not on staff with our company. We're contracting out to them. We've hired a couple of key people. Obviously, I've made a change in my accountant, and one that won't file an extension, but also they know that our agreement is severed immediately if they don't file on time. But we've also hired they're basically a financial strategist. And so for young entrepreneurs that don't have tons of business experience.
I could have done that for you.
No, not to the level of what this guy's doing.
How do you know? How the fuck do you know?
Oh, I got a feeling I know.
Oh man, I don't think so. Said the guy who had a surprise $37,000 tax bill roll up. What did we talk about the other day when we were talking about this? What did I tell you?
We talk about a lot, so
we
go
talk
ahead.
about
Go
a lot.
on. Go on.
What did we talk about? I said, Mitch, it's your responsibility every 3 months to know what you're supposed to be guesstimating your tax liability for that. We tell all of our listeners, hey, look, when you get a bill in the mail, listen, if you do a job and it's 10 grand, okay, and $5,000 of that is overhead, material, supplies, labor, whatever, and you think you have made $5,000 in profit, 30% of that is set aside for the government.
Right.
You know that with every invoice you send out. And you can look at it. Don't interrupt me. You should know that every 3 months, and you don't have to sit down and tally it up exactly, but you could easily look at it and say, okay, I think we're on the track for this. Yeah. And then the next month, we're on the track of it for this. And then you can't, I'm not intentionally trying to make Mitch feel bad or look bad.
No.
But as a business owner, you have to be on, until you can find someone that you actually trust and has a track record for more than a couple of years, you have to be able to look at that stuff and say, okay, I'm going to be here and I've only been paying in this. What is going on? Right. At 6 months, you probably should have known, hey, this isn't right. Something is fucked up. I need to go to this guy and say, hey, dude, what the hell? So
here's the big difference between the advice we're giving to our listeners and what happened to me. The advice we're giving to our listeners is great advice. However, the advice we're giving to our listeners has to do a lot with you're a one-man show, so the numbers are a lot smaller, and you're probably not running payroll. You're probably just taking owner's draws. And so on the one-man show level where you're taking owner's draws, you are going to have to pay approximately 30% tax on every amount of money you owners drew out of your account and every dollar that's in your account on December 31st. Because every dollar that's left in your account on December 31st is probably profit, and every dollar you owners drew is probably profit. So that is still phenomenal advice, and it worked perfectly for our first year in business. Where the complications came in for me, and this is why we're talking about this on the show, is because we want to.
I'm not busting Mitch's balls to make him bad. This is a learning experience for everyone
for everybody.
Listening.
And this, let's be 100% transparent here. This is the whole purpose of this show, and this highlights that. So the reason we have this show is because we were recently where you are. Right? Yeah. Well, guess what? If you're just now starting out in business, you're soon going to be exactly where I am right now. And where I am right now is in that funny middle ground between the advice that we give you on the show from being a one-man show where you have to set all these tax reserve accounts aside for yourself and being a company that has a massive payroll, I don't want to say massive because we have what, 6, 7 employees.
You're a small business.
So now we have a large payroll,
Yeah.
especially compared to a one-man show. We have a big payroll.
Yeah.
We're paying in tons of taxes every month already, and it gets way too overwhelming for one person to understand how all of that plays against each other from the get-go. So you have to put faith in your accountant that they're steering you in the right direction. And the 100% downfall of all of this is my accountant spent 6 months giving me bad information. He spent 6 months telling me we're okay. And then September 1st tells me we owe $47,000. And by the way, when you file an extension, taxes are due September 15th.
Yeah.
So I had 15 days to come up with $47,000.
I told you I'd loan it to you.
Yeah, of course you did.
I did. I said, you need me to write you a check or not?
So
He said, no, I got it. I said, okay.
So that's where the problem came in. We got into a financial area, a taxing and accounting area where it was way above my expertise, right? And so at that moment, I needed to rely on my accountant, and when I needed them most, they let me down with bad advice. So here's where this turns into a good thing. This isn't money that we shouldn't have owed, right? It's money we should have been paying all along. So
Yeah.
I can't really get...
It's not your money. You owed it. You knew it.
I owed it. It's at the moment you owe it. At that point, it's like, okay, it's not that I'm not mad at the government. I'm mad at my accountant
First
for
off,
giving me bad advice.
We're all mad at the government because
I'm
they're
not
a
more,
bunch of shitheads.
Let me
That's
correct
its
that.
own thing.
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
another-
more mad
yeah.
at the government, however. But I was suspicious of all of this stuff kind of brewing anyway, and I was kind of leery anyway. And so when the information came to me, I don't want to say it was a surprise, or it wasn't a surprise, because it was, but it wasn't a surprise that my accountant wasn't quite accurate with all that stuff. I had a sneaking feeling that it was going to happen. So in the process, I've got a new accountant. Now this new accountant costs a lot more, but I have a new accountant that's very proactive and very, very proactive on understanding a lot of the tax strategy programs. And so now we have 5 vehicles that we bought all this year, and they're actually coming to me and already we're in Q3. So right now we're in Q4 of 2022, but in Q3 of 2022, they were coming to me and asking, do you have any preferences on how we depreciate these vehicles? We bought 5 vehicles in this year. Do you want to depreciate them all at 100%, or do you want to depreciate 1 or 2 of them at 100 and then slow down the rest? Or do you want our advice on what you should do? So they're already coming to me with aggressive plans on how much profit do you want to show this year? And they're leveraging all of that against, will I need a loan in the next few years? Because they could depreciate all the vehicles this year and make it look like I made no money. However, that costs me if I ever want to go get a loan, because no bank's going to loan money to a business that makes no money, right?
I see Mitch getting a loan this next year. I think next May, Mitch is going to be getting I'd say he's going to be getting his own building. Be next May.
Maybe.
That'd be my guess.
Maybe. We'll see. So
that'd be my guess. Let me ask you something.
But anyway, I've got this accountant that's now very proactive about, like, what do you want? What are your plans for the business, so we know how to do your taxes accordingly, rather than an accountant who's old and stuck in their ways and saying, I've always done it this way and this is what we do, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you something.
Yep.
Do you think that this last year,
mm-hmm.
do you think, as far as breaking it down quarterly, do you think that you could sit down and say, okay, so for each employee, because all your employees make the same money, basically, your techs.
Close.
For each tech in a given quarter, it costs me this much, or this amount of money X goes against my tax liability for that quarter. If you sat down and did it.
So I know where you're getting with that.
Well, I'm just saying, so if it would be easier. I don't know if it would help you or not. I don't know if it would help the listeners or not, but if I had 5, I know that each employee is 5% or of whatever that quarter is, and then that would help you adjust your tax compensation for that quarter, going from one quarter to the next.
So one of the people that
I find that very interesting.
Yeah. So one of the people I've brought onto my team is a financial strategist for young businesses, and full transparency, how these guys work is they basically get in and they really, really understand where you're at in business now and where you want to be. And they charge you a monthly fee. And that monthly fee is to set your tax strategy up. Once your tax strategy is set up, it's fairly consistent in the following years. And so their monthly fee...
Yeah, unless you have a drastic change or something.
Yeah, like if you acquire a business or
buy a building.
Something, right?
Yeah.
And so...
Hire 6 guys.
Well, no, hiring people doesn't affect your strategy. It just affects the numbers that are going into it.
Of course it affects your strategy. You've hired 6. They're all busy. Now you're making money. Now your whole strategy has changed.
No.
Am I saving that money? Am I keeping that money? Am I writing a big check?
That's all included in the strategy. It's just affecting the numbers that are going into the strategy. How much profit, how much costs, and all that stuff. But... So basically how these guys work is they're going to charge you a monthly fee, but then after you're on board with them for about 12 months, the strategies are pretty much set in place. And so pretty common, you're going to find that their monthly fee cuts in half on the 13th month, and it'll stay reduced from there on out. And so now they stay on as your financial consultant, but a bulk of their work is done because they've kind of set your strategy in place.
Yeah.
So realistic example of how this works. So for those that are listening to the show that started a business around the pandemic, or I'm sorry, that were in business around the pandemic or whatever, we've all heard the term PPP loans. And these were loans from the government to
pay your employees.
To pay your employees, right? It was a payroll protection plan, is what I think PPP stands for. And so it was basically a check from the government as a, hey, we're sorry we shut your business down. Here's some money to help cover the payroll that you incurred while your business was shut down, right? The government also came out later with another program called ERC credits. And ERC stands for Employee Retention Credits. So on top of PPP loans, employers could qualify for ERC credits. And how those ERC credits work is basically if you were in business in 2019 and then you could prove you lost revenue in 2020 while retaining employees, the government's going to give you some money for that. And then if you can prove that you lost revenue again in 2021 in comparison to your 2019 revenue, the government's going to give you some more money for that, right? And so I asked our old accountant, I said, hey, we started our business after the pandemic started, so I don't even think it's ethical for me to try PPP loans because we literally opened our business up after the shutdowns. So we didn't really have PPP issues, right? I didn't even ever look into it. I think we were even outside the window for PPP stuff.
You were still paying your guys.
Well, yeah,
we were busy.
They're
still working.
Yeah, we were busy.
They're still
right?
working.
I couldn't show a loss in revenue because we didn't have any, right? So, but I asked my accountant about these ERC credits, and he said, no, if you don't have any revenue to show in 2019, you're not going to qualify. Well, we didn't open our business until 2020.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, and I left it at that. Again, I was trusting him, right? Well, my new financial strategist said, we need to look into ERC credits. And I said, well, I don't know if we'll qualify because we weren't in business in 2019. He says, I got a guy. It doesn't cost you, it doesn't cost you anything until he proves that he can get you ERC credits. I'm going to have him look into you, set up a discovery call.
Well, so from 20 to 21, you could.
Maybe, right? But if we didn't have 2019 as an anchor, I didn't know if it would work. So anyway, this guy calls me up.
We go year to year.
We go over all the facts and everything else, and I tell him flat out, I'm like, look, we didn't open up until 2020. So I don't even think I qualify. And he goes, what kind of work do you do? And I said, in-home service plumbing. And he says, and you opened mid-pandemic? I said, yeah. And he goes, you qualify. Trust me.
Yeah, from 20 to 21, you should, at least that year.
And then I said, okay, well, even if I did qualify, I don't have, like, we did better in 21 than we did in 20.
Yeah.
So I didn't lose revenue. And he goes, it doesn't matter. Employee retention credits.
Oh, you were keeping your employees busy.
Not only were you keeping employees, you were adding employees.
I wondered where you were going with that.
Yeah. So you were adding employees through this time, and your employees were doing essential work of going into people's homes and fixing their plumbing. He says, I guarantee you qualify. So ERC credits are based around your payroll, taxes, and all of this kind of stuff. And so I send him all the info he asked for. He comes back to me, and he says, guess what? You qualify for $35,000 in ERC credits.
So what does an ERC credit do for you?
It's basically a check from the government straight to you as an apology, basically.
So basically it is a tax deduction for whatever.
No, it's a check.
No, I understand that, but it's essentially a tax deduction because you owe taxes.
Yeah, so basically
you owe taxes.
It's
so
a
now
credit. Yeah, it's a credit check based off of your payroll taxes during those time periods.
Yeah,
right.
It's a thank you for keeping going.
Yeah,
but it's basically a tax deduction.
Yeah, it's a tax deduction in arrears is kind of what it is.
Exactly.
So because this is all based off of past times, right?
Yes.
So I had one accountant who was telling me you don't even qualify. I'm not even going to look into it.
So you're telling me
and
you
then
have
I
a
have
check
this
for
other guy
$35K coming?
Where
are we going?
So how we handled...
Where are we going? Where
again,
the fuck are we going?
We're all about real life and transparency on this show.
Where are we going, man?
My $37,000 tax expense that I was not expecting.
Yeah.
About $8,000 to $9,000 of it was state taxes, and the rest was federal taxes.
Yeah.
We paid the state taxes in at 100%. Your federal taxes offer you several options to defer that payment. You can set up on payment plans.
Pay it.
You can pay it all outright.
Pay it.
Or
write a fucking check.
You can defer it for 180 days or 360 days. So
you did the 180?
We deferred it for 180.
How about that? Look at that
cost
guess.
us a little bit of money. But
it's not much.
It's not, I mean, it's a lot in comparison to figuring the 180. However, again, when you're bestowed with this nice $37,000 surprise.
Where the fuck are we going?
Yeah. So.
Hey, snowboarding trip this year paid for by Smedley Plumbing.
Not happening. So what we did was we deferred our tax payment by 180 days, and then we should have our ERC credit check by then, and we're hoping that those two will offset. Now, how these ERC credit guys work is they take a cut, they take a percentage. And so they do all the legwork, they do all the processing of the paperwork. And granted, this is paperwork I don't even know how to process, right?
No.
So,
and if it doesn't come from someone that's certified, they probably just throw it in the trash.
Right.
No, in our government.
Right. And so...
no one's getting a cut? Trash.
Right. So by the time they get their cut, it should come out about in a wash of what our federal tax liability is that's due in 180 days and when we receive our ERC credit money. So essentially, we got bestowed with like 50 grand, over 50 grand in tax surprises. We didn't fold up our doors. We didn't give up. We didn't go sell off everything and say, well, that was a good run. We even alluded to, Dave and I have been talking about when to drop this show for a while. Obviously, Dave knows, like I keep Dave in the loop of everything that's going on in my business.
Yeah, we're friends. It's different.
Yeah, Dave knew since September 1st at about probably 10 minutes after I left my accountant's office that all of this happened.
We did a show that night, I think.
Well, so we did a show and we talked about being prepared for financial surprises and all of that kind of stuff.
I can't remember.
And we talked about the big crazy surprises and how it's not the final chapter of your book, it's a chapter of your book, but how you rebound from it defines the rest of the book. So we stuck with it. We got creative. We shaved 10 grand off the tax bill right away with how we depreciated the trucks. And we sought better counsel from other experts, and we got a path out of it, right? And so there's no worries from my account. There's the cash flow is fine and everything is fine there. there's always options away from it. So the whole purpose of this show is to let you know that, I just got slapped with $50,000 in surprises, and I'm still kicking it and still running strong and still have a way out. And I've learned from the experience of what led into that. And so we're going to put some plans in place so that doesn't happen again. Now, that doesn't mean I won't get slapped with another $50,000 surprise somewhere else. However, owning a business, much like anything in life, is all about learning from past experiences and trying to reduce the likelihood of that happening again. Well, I can virtually guarantee that this tax surprise won't happen again. However, I am sure we will get surprised in other areas that I don't even know about yet, and we'll have to mitigate those as they come through.
Yeah, and the whole point of the show isn't just to teach guys how to get started and give them a footprint to get started. It's about empowering people. I shouldn't say guys, I always say guys. It's about empowering people to know that even when the chips are down, you can overcome it. If you are prepared and you've done the things that we talk about on this show about being prepared and being in the right situation, even when you get a big surprise or if you get a gut punch, you have the tools to get past it.
Yeah.
Okay, there are always options out there to get past it.
Yep.
Just like Mitch just saying, if you get a tax bill, okay, they will let you defer it.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that what you want to do? Of course not. But it will buy you time to seek counsel, to talk to another tax advisor, to get that check from that big commercial job that you haven't got yet and you're worried you're not going to make it. But hey, if I just defer this, I know I'm going to get that check.
Yeah.
I think in our culture right now, a lot of people will just immediately hit the panic button. Like, oh shit, what do I do? And they get so overwhelmed and they don't know, what to do. They're just, oh shit, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just take a deep breath, okay? Analyze your situation, okay? Try to use the tools that we've given you, that other mentors have given you. Take a deep breath and realize, okay, this is shitty, but I can get through it.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
Well, and it's no different than, how we started this show with Brad Lee's story about burning his $3,800. Oh, isn't that funny? That's funny. My wife has just surprised me with my Halloween costume. And
why is she wearing it?
Well, she just did a trunk or treat. So we were handing candy out of a toilet bowl.
Is that a skirt or pant legs?
Those are pant legs.
Okay,
she's wearing a toilet.
I'm not as...
She is literally a guy sitting on a toilet.
What are you, high? Get out of here.
She's showing it off for the camera.
Okay, so for all of you that have never actually went to the YouTube channel...
You might want to watch this one on YouTube.
You might want to go at least to the last 5 minutes and see what happened.
That's hilarious.
Danielle's living up to her old nickname.
Now Austin knows why he has to film the meeting tomorrow, because I'm walking in the meeting wearing that.
Are you guys still having it at the breakfast place?
No, at her shop.
Oh, that's fucking lame.
Oh, hell no, it's so much better.
Hello, do you think it would be better for you to walk that into the warehouse or walk that into Sandy's? Because frankly, I think that would be better to go into Sandy's.
Well, I have to make for sure I ask Mitch, because he'll do this thing where every once in a while he'll just say, bring your camera, be ready to shoot.
Yeah.
And then nothing else, no context.
Mr. Organized, yeah.
Yeah.
And then no context, be like, is there can I plan on anything? What are we shooting?
You're going to watch somebody get fired.
I've told Austin 100 times, I could never work for Mitch. I was like, he'd just be in a hole in the backyard. He'd be dead in 2 days.
Well, sometimes he'll send context, he'll send bring your camera ready to shoot, and then 10 minutes later, oh, we're filming this. There's the context.
There it is.
Hey, buddy, I already left the house. Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So,
Wrap it up, Mitch. We've been doing that. I'm exhausted.
So just like we were talking about Brad Lee overcoming the adversity of having no money and still having to figure out how he's going to run the rest of the week in Vegas, right? He didn't give up. He didn't go home. He figured it out, right? And that's ultimately what starting your own business is you're literally in the business of figuring shit out and understanding that when you figure out today's problems, tomorrow's going to bring more. And the next week's going to bring more, and next month you're going to have more. And the bigger your business gets, the bigger potential problems can be. I'm not saying the bigger they will be, but the bigger they can be, right? The more you're doing, the bigger your problems can be, but you can mitigate them. You can offset them. And so, literally today I was on the phone with my financial strategist, and we have a meeting next week about putting plans in place to put a double check measure in on the accountant. So as I'm closing out the books, I have an actual number at the end of each month to say, okay, here's how much profit we show, here's how much we should be setting aside for taxes. And all of that kind of stuff.
Is that correct?
And we can verify from the accountant, is that correct, and everything else. So again, it's greatly different when you have, salary employees and hourly employees, and you're paying all of these other taxes. It's a wildly different game than when you're just employed by yourself and taking owner's draws. So, guys, if this show brought you value, if you liked what you heard in this show, if you want to hear more stuff like you heard today, do us a favor and let us know. I mean, send us a message on Facebook, send us a message on our The Void YouTube page, send us an email at askmitch@mitchsmedley.com. We encourage your feedback. Literally, the whole purpose of this show is to help you guys start your businesses and do well in your first few years. And so in order to do that, we need your feedback. We need to hear about the struggles that you're having in your business. We need to hear about the struggles that you're facing wanting to start your business. And so the more you communicate with us, the better these shows get. So do us a favor and don't hesitate at all to communicate with us. So also, if you like this show, please do us a favor and drop us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on. If you're listening on YouTube, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up. So until next week, guys, we will see you later, and keep kicking ass.
Love you guys.
See ya.